Beseder, we'll start. The idea that I took today, here you can see at the page at the bottom here, I always write on the third page where I take things from, not everything is mine, is from Arav Mordechai Sabato. He's a professor also. Since I wrote it, he became a professor. Mishpachat Sabato are three brothers, each are geniuses. One's a Rosh Yeshiva. The second one, I don't know. The third one is a professor. And I think this idea is amazing. Okay, so let's see what we've got in this parasha. Parashat Vaishlach. We are starting from, I say again, the division of the chapters are terribly divided. We'll go by the Hebrew, by our parasha. So the beginning of our parasha starts from verse 4, chapter 32. Vaishlach Yaakov malachim lefanav el Esav. He sends the messengers to his brother Seir, and the word Seir will appear at the beginning of the chapter, and also in green. I also wrote bolded in green. Begam holech likratcha ve'arbamot ish imo. He's escorted with 400 soldiers, not just people, soldiers, and really frightening. And the beginning of the chapter is really devastating for Yaakov. The bottom of the story of this chapter, which is in the middle of the next chapter actually, is again, you can see that Esav is bringing and bringing the 400 people, but not to fight against Yaakov, but actually to go and escort Yaakov. Vayomer Esav, atzigana imcha min ha'am asher iti. I'll give you an escort from the people who have come with me, and I want to escort you with all the kids and all the women and so on. And again, the word Seira and Esav goes back at the end of the story to Seir. By the way, Chazal say, and we read it on the Haftarah, Va'alu moshi'im behar Tzion ishpart et har Esav. In the time to come, Yaakov will come and will come to Esav and will visit him in Seir, which is Alu moshi'im behar Tzion ishpart et har Esav. Har Esav, the mountain of Esav, is on the other side of the Jordan. So the beginning of the story, there's such a big fright, and the end of the story, there's a terrible, there's everything is, everybody's happy, everybody's lovey-dovey's, I would say. They're hugging each other. What happened in the middle? And in the middle, you can see this red passage. And the middle is the story of the angel. So before we get to the story of the angel, we have to see what happens before that. Okay, so I'm saying there are three parts to this story. The first part is the yellow part, which is the preparations before this meeting, the collision between Esav and Yaakov. The middle part is the fighting with the angel. The third part is the real meeting of Yaakov with Esav, and everything changes over. And the question is, how come does everything change over? And of course, everything changes over because of the middle part. But before we get to the middle part, let's see the first part. The first part is written that twice he goes to sleep in the middle of the night. And that's impossible. Somebody who's really terrified, he wakes up perhaps the whole time, but how come that he does something, and then it's written in purple here in verse number 14, Vayalin sham balayla hu. And again it's written in verse 22, Vehu lan balayla hu. And we've already used this kind of expressions, and we said there's past and there's what's it called? Past perfect, which means the past of the past. Again.
He had slept.
He had slept, exactly. That means he only slept once. He only slept once and got up in the middle of the night. And the second part is also talking about the first time that he got up, but there's a division between the first part and the second part. There are many times like that in the Tanakh, and I'll just give you one example, for instance, about Shimshon. Shimshon HaGibor, in the middle of the chapters, it's written, and he judged Israel for 20 years. But the story is still carrying on. He's still going to Gaza, and he's still meeting Glila. He's got 2 more women that he's still dealing. Why is it written in the middle? And then at the end of the story, really at the end, after he was, he died, he committed suicide, he pushed the 2 pillars, it's written again, and he had been judged, which means in the middle of the story, that was the main part. That means he stopped being a judge of Israel in the middle of the story. He gave up on Israel. I won't go to the whole story, but then he gave up. I think it's the end of chapter 13 there. Judges at the end of
16.
Sorry?
I think.
13. First
Okay.
of all, the first time is 13. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second time, it's the end of chapter 14. So why is it written twice? But the second time it's written, and he had been judging. Okay? You've got many times like this. I won't give you now. I can give you a few more examples, but that's a normal thing that the past perfect, the second time, will always go back to the first time. Also here is exactly the same. Here it's written twice, and he had been sleeping. Well, why is it written twice? It's written twice because it's differentiating between the first preparations against Esav and the second preparations. What are the preparations of the first time? Chazal come and say that he prepared with 3 elements. With Doron, with a present to try to, it's called trying to give presents and to try to
appease.
To soften the attitude of Esav. So many times when you give presents, it's trying to oil down the, liquidate the difficult things. That's Doron. The second thing is Tfilah. And the third thing is Milchama. So actually here comes Arab Sabota and says, we can find these 3 elements, but actually the first 2 are dealing with the war. And the first 2 are dealing with the war is in 2 aspects of war. One is preparing for war. One is praying, and that's the same element. When you go to war, you pray, and that's usually what happens with Israel, that they always, before they go to war, they pray. So the 2 first elements are the first part. The second part is talking about peace. And to do peace is trying to, like I said, giving presents and trying to stop the friction between Esav and his hatred and so on. So the first 2 we'll soon see that are the beginning, and the first 2 are dealing with a word which is written machane. Machane is camp, and of course, which camps is Yaakov frightened? He's frightened from the camp of Esav that had 400 people. Wow, that's an army camp, and that's really frightening, and that's what he's terrified, and that's why he's preparing himself with 2 elements. One, perhaps to run away, and we'll talk about that. He can't fight against 400 people with his women and children, so he will try to run away. The second element is he's praying. We'll soon see that at the next page. The second part, after the purple that he slept, is going to a different word. It's the same word with different, the same letters with different order. Instead of the word machane, which means camp, now he's giving mincha. Wow, that's amazing. He's using the same word, but in different order, which means mincha is a present, is a praise. I'm giving you a lot of, and he gives enormous amount of of sheep and cattle, and he's giving an enormous present to all this. He's sending for free to Esav to try to lower down the friction between Esav and his hatred against Yaakov. So you can see the first half is machane in green. The second half is in green with yellow, mincha. Ah, that's interesting. So that's why it's divided into two. Okay, before we carry on, so I'm just saying we're going to the next part. Okay, the next part is that he's preparing with these three elements, and again he gets up in the middle of the night at verse number 23, Vayakum balayla hu, and he takes his women and children. By the way, he crosses the Yabok. Now, interesting, we'll see soon that the word Yabok is a river, but it definitely comes from the word ma'avak, which means to struggle. And soon he'll be struggling, or he'll be struggling very hard against who? Against the angel. Here in the word behav koimo. So Yabok probably comes from the word ma'avak, which means to struggle. So he crosses the river, by the way, crosses the river, which means he's trying to run away. He's crossing the river, he's trying to run away as quickly as possible in the middle of the night with his children and with his women and children, and then he still stays by himself. Chazal says he stays by himself because he's forgotten a few vessels, he's still trying to overcome. He didn't cross the river, or he crossed the river and crossed back again. And then suddenly you've got the whole story with the angel. And in the middle, you've got in this part of this paragraph of the angel, you've got in the middle the blue, which is the amazing verse, which is talking about that the angel surrenders. We know it's an angel, by the way, because the whole time it's written a man, a man, a man. How do we know it's an angel? Here it's not written an angel. But we know from the book of Hosea and from other places, the book of Hosea, where is it written which verse is it? I'll soon tell you it's written, I've got written down in the book of Hosea. Where is it written?
I'm looking.
Okay, I now I don't remember which chapter, but he explains, the prophet Hosea says that it's an angel. He explains, and Yaakov was fighting an angel. So we know at least from one prophet, from other elements also, that you can see that it's not a normal man that's meeting him in the middle of the night. We're talking about an angel, and he's fighting angels, and that angel is blessing him. And you can see all this story is fantastic story. And you found it?
Hosea Yud Bet.
Hosea Yud Bet. Okay, I didn't remember that. Hosea Yud Bet. And then Vayasar. It's written the word Sar. It's written the angel. Okay, well done. Thank you very much. Okay, so there the angel here comes and says in the blue, Vayomer lo Yaakov Yamer od Shimcha. Your name won't be anymore Yaakov, which means you are from the bottom of the leg, from the heel, you are not so low. Ki im Yamer od Shimcha, ki im Israel, because your name will be changed to Israel. Ki sarita im Elohim v'im anashim v'tuchal. You are able to tackle and to combat against God, which might mean God. Of course, you don't fight God, but it means an angel, and with people, and you will succeed. Here, the man or the angel is telling you, I'm changing your name, and you are really high, Israel, which means you are high above. You're not so low. You're high above, and Sar, and you're really as high as an angel, and you managed to fight against angel. We know that he managed to really tackle with the angel. And now we understand why at the third part of the story, suddenly Esav is suddenly more lenient. He comes with 400 people, but suddenly everything is lowering down and there's no big combat, and there's no big fuss. The other way around, Yaakov is presenting his family instead of in front of Esav, and Esav, you can see, is really very lenient, and he's asking in the verse number 8, "Vayom mi lecha kol hamachaneh hazeh asher pagashti?" Who's this camp that I've met? Wow, now it's the other way around. Esav is asking Yaakov, who's the camp that I've met? By the way, Chazal mean it's not this camp, the women and the children. He's not frightened of the women and the children. Which camp is he talking about? It must have been a camp of angels that escorted Yaakov. So suddenly, Esav is coming with 400 people, but he's frightened from the camp that somebody is escorting Yaakov, and must be a lot of angels that escorted him. We know from other places from the Tanakh that many times in front of Israel come enormous amount of people or angels which are escorting Am Yisrael. One of the main stories that give that is in the second book of Kings, chapter 4 or chapter 5. You can see when the 4 leprosy people that have leprosy, and they go out, they are outside the city because nobody's inviting them in the city, and the city is bombarded by Aram, about the Arameans, and suddenly they see that the Arameans have disappeared. And why did they disappear? And that chapter is written that enormous amount of noise and angels came and frightened the Arameans. So you can see angels, and there's a lot of noises, but that's only one of many other stories that we can find that always from the Shamayim, from heavens, Hashem sometimes frightens our enemies away. By the way, also many Arabs used to say in the 6-Day War and other wars, they've seen a lot of angels and they run away from the Israelis. Okay, so we know it's not only just making it up. And many times we feel that if we're doing the right thing, so really our enemies will run away from us. So here, what happened is actually that Esav is more frightened from Yaakov than Yaakov is frightened from Esav. And he's asking, Milcha kol hamachaneh. He's using the word machaneh, but he's talking about there's some kind of camp here. Who's this camp? And then Yaakov is using again the word mincha, and he says, listen, don't worry, I'm giving you the present. Imna matzati chem be'enecha v'lakachti minchati miyadi. Don't worry, you found in my sight, or I've seen in my sight that you are really fond of me, so I'm giving you my present to you. And that's the whole thing, that the middle passage, which is talking about the combat with the angel, that changed the whole attitude of Esav, and also Yaakov is less frightened. I say he's definitely frightened. He's still bowing down a lot. You'll see in the third part, he's bowing down a lot, and he's saying the whole time, Adoni, Adoni, Adoni. Let's go to the next page and we'll see what's going on. The next page, I'm showing you again that the first two, if you remember, it was written 2 passages that Yaakov is preparing against Esav. One passage is talking about war, and I said that he's using actually 2 methods. One method is preparing for war, which is not exactly to fight, but to run away. The second one is he's using tefillah. How do I know he's using these 2 methods? Because have a look, blue and orange are repeating twice. Va'ira Yaakov me'od vayetzer lo, and Yaakov was terrified. It's not only that he's frightened, he's terrified, vayetzer lo, and he's really disturbed. And again, it's written afterwards in blue, he's praying and saying to Hashem, Hatzileni miyad achi miyad Esav, please redeem Hashem me from my brother, from Esav, because I'm terrified. Ki arei anochi oto. Can you see the same words? Vayira Yaakov me'od, ki arei anochi. Exactly the same words. Here it's even written even more explicit that he's frightened, otherwise Esav will hikani emal banim. Hikani emal banim, only 3 times in the whole Tanakh is written the thing that he'll hit me, mother by children. The first time is here. The second time is written about the mitzvah to make a bird run and flee if you want to take the children. Otherwise, you're not allowed to take the bird with the mother with the children. Pen hikani emal banim. Okay, that's the second time, and the third time is written also. I think in that place in the also in Hosea, but 3 times is written, which means Esav will kill me completely with the women, with the children, with the mothers. So that's he's praying here. So the first part is talking about, again, that he's frightened. And then in orange, in the first part, it's written, Vayachatz et ha'am asher ito, ve'et hatzon ve'et habakar ve'agmalim mishnei machanot. He divides them into 2 different machanot, which means into 2 different camps, which is not camps to fight. It's camps which means like not putting all the eggs in the same basket. If he'll hit one camp, at least the other camp can run away. That means he's trying to run away. But the way to run away is divide the eggs in 2 baskets. If one basket will break, at least I've saved the other half of eggs. So here it means if one camp will be attacked, at least the other camp will run away. That means I won't lose all my wives and my children. Wow. So you can see here he's preparing for war. I said preparing for war is not exactly preparing for war. It's preparing to run away. And the second aspect is, of course, the praying. All this is praying. And these 2 together are combined in the first paragraph. Then the second paragraph, I talked about that he prepared for peace. That means giving presents, and all this is written here with enormous amount of presents. And now I'm going to the bottom in the middle part. And the middle part, again, I always show that everything is written twice. Everything is chiastic, okay? The colors here are very strong, but I'm trying to show that everything is written twice, which the first half is talking about that he's frightened. The second half, he's less frightened. Why is he less frightened? Because the first half, he's coming a combat against the angel. The second half, after the angel blessed him, who's now the stronger one? He's been hit by the angel. Now he's limping, but at least he's stronger than the angel. Of course, he's limping, but actually the one who got hit and the one who was caught was the angel, and the angel is begging Yaakov, please release me because I have to go up to the Shamayim. Okay, so I'm just showing you, for instance, a few verses which are repeated here over and over again. For instance, the verse in blue, Vayaver et asher lo, and he crossed the river. Yaakov is crossing the river with all his escort. Vayivater Yaakov levado, and Yaakov stayed by himself. Like I said, Chazal gave an excuse why he stayed by himself, because he crossed the river and he stayed by himself. Vayavek ishimo, and vayavek, you can see the word ilavek is he's tackling, which is exactly the word yabok. The yabok, I said the name of the river is called yabok, which means struggling, ma'avak. So here you can see is the big struggle, but in the blue afterwards, in the second half of this paragraph, it's written, Vaizrach lo hashemesh ka'asher avar et Pnuel. Here he's crossing. Here is also crossing. He's crossing to Pnuel. And here, of course, he's limping, but he's already after the struggle. Here it's before the struggle. Here it's after the struggle. And here you can see in red, for instance, at the beginning, Vayomer shalcheni ke'ala shachar, vayomer lo ashlachacha. Yaakov is holding the angel and not letting him cross and leave him. And he's asking, Yaakov is asking the angel, bless me. And afterwards, after the struggle, the angel is being really he's lost in the battle, and the angel blesses him. Vayivarach oto sham, and in red, Vayikra Yaakov shem hamakom Pniel. Not only Yaakov is not only struggling, but he's already seeing that he has won, and he calls the place Pniel, which means I've struggled or I've been opposite God. God doesn't only always mean God, it means also the angel. Ki ra'iti Elohim panim el panim. I managed to combat against something which is highly, something which is really like an angel or like, which has got an image of God. Okay, so we'll see that everything is copied here twice. Here is in orange, you can see Vayomer elav ma shmecha Vayomer Yaakov. The angel is asking, what's your name, Yaakov? And the other way around, now Yaakov is asking the angel, what is your name? When you're asking an angel, what's your name? Which means actually the angel is under the strength of Yaakov. Yaakov is holding him, and I'm not leaving you until you'll tell me what's your name. So you can see at the beginning, Yaakov was under the force of the angel. After the verse 29, he's now on top of the angel, and he's telling you, you tell me what's your name. Anyhow, everything is repeated here twice, and you can see that really, here you can see that the struggle is harsh. Afterwards, the struggle is tame, it's gone down again, and then there's a chibuk. At the beginning, in purple, it's written the word yabok, which comes from the word ma'avak, which means struggle. But afterwards, actually, it's not a struggle anymore. It's actually, I would say, more, even the angel is more tame and is blessing Yaakov. And later, Esav is doing exactly the same. What's Esav using? Which word is written in purple here or anything? Vayichabkeu. Esav is hugging Yaakov, but he's hugging him not because he's struggling against him, but he's really kissing him or loving him even. And that's amazing that you can see something has changed over. What has changed over? I don't know if Esav knew that he had an angel which is escorting him. But after the angel lost against Yaakov, Esav also lost his ability to fight against Yaakov. Yaakov, which had the amazing ability of struggling against even angels, Esav must have felt something weak in him that he's lost the battle. His angel or whoever escorted him has left him. So also Esav has lost the possibility and is also actually hugging him and is ready to actually I wouldn't say love Yaakov, but is ready not to hate him as much. Okay, that's interesting. One more thing which is written here twice is the word Vayisa Yaakov einav vayar v'hinei Esav imo. Yaakov lifts up his eyes and see Esav is coming with 400 people, but he's not so frightened anymore. He's bringing all the children and women to come in and confront Esav. But exactly the same verse is written also with Esav. Vaisa et einav, who's now looking, who's lifting up his eyes, exactly the same words which are written here about Yaakov. Now it's written about Esav. Vaisa, which means he's lifting up his eyes, Esav, and seeing the women and the children. Vayomer mi'ele. Here Yaakov is seeing the 400 people and not so frightened. And here Esav is lifting his eyes and seeing all the family that Yaakov has. and he's saying, who is all this people that I've seen now, and I should be together, perhaps escort you, and so on. So things have changed completely from the middle part, which is what I'm saying again. The middle part is talking about the angel, but Esav must have felt that really he's losing power, and that's why he's becoming more tame. Yes, he's together with 400 people, but he's tame. What did you want to say?
So, I'm playing with my concordancia. So the verb sarah,
Ken,
in terms of to struggle,
to struggle, yes.
only occurs in the context of Yaakov.
Amazing.
In other words, in
Amazing.
Genesis 32 and in Hosea Yud Bet.
Okay, Hosea Yud Bet, and what was the first one?
In here, in Bereshit Lamed.
Bereshit. That's the only two places.
Right. Otherwise,
Wow.
you have the verb sarar, but that means to lishloat.
To rule.
Right.
Perhaps.
It's not to struggle.
Not to struggle. So you can see that actually Hosea is explaining this story.
Right. Cool.
And,
yeah.
And Hosea is definitely talking about the same time. By the way, Hosea was at the end of the 10, he was the last prophet of Israel for the 10 Shvatim,
Northern
for the
Kingdom.
10 thing. And he is called Hosea. The last king of the 10 tribes is also called Hosea.
Hosea.
Many times you have the king is called the same name of the prophet, or the other way around. The prophet is trying to tell the king, listen, I'm your messenger and I'm warning you, if you don't hurry up, you'll be expelled from Israel. And that's what exactly happened. Okay, so the Hosea is talking about the same thing. But he's saying, if you will listen to what I'm telling you, you will defeat the enemy. But he didn't listen. The king Hosea didn't listen to the prophet Hosea, and he was defeated. And after 10 years, he was expelled from the country with the rest of the 10 things. Okay, I'm going to the last page, and I'm going to show something interesting here. Many times you find here in this passage, can you see the third page, is written something which I would say is nearly unbearable. And I wouldn't say that, but Chazal say, our rabbis say, really Yaakov really did something which is unbearable, which means he's talking to Esav and telling Esav that he's got a face of God. He's so frightened of Esav that he's really bound down to him, and he's calling him the whole time Adoni, Adoni. That's terrible already. But he's even saying 3-4 times the word Achapra panav. I will really see your face, and I really want to try to repent opposite your face. And he says later, Ve'echen ere panav. Ulai Isai Panai. These are verses which only Moses says it only after the sin of the calf. He says that to Hashem. But how dare Yaakov say that in front of his enemy? And Chazal really have a lot of expressions which are really condemning Yaakov. I'll soon say, how do they know that Yaakov sinned or semi-sinned? He didn't sin exactly, but he overdid it, that he's bowing down so much to Esav that he says, Er'e panav ulai isa panai, and then he says something terrible, Ra'iti Elohim panim el panim. That means, I've seen your face like seeing God. Who's he talking about? He's talking about Esav? No, he's talking about that actually he saw the angel's face and it looked exactly like Esav. That's another thing to show that the angel that was fighting Yaakov had the same look and the same image of Esav. Because he says, panim el panim, who's he talking about? He's talking about, I saw the angel and I managed to conquer him. I managed to defeat him. And probably Esav understood, you've seen somebody like me and you defeated him? That might have made Esav panic-stricken. He says, wow, you managed to defeat an angel, so how can I defeat you? And you can see this is really happening also at the bottom of the whole story. When Yaakov meets again Esav, not only the angel, Vayomer Yaakov imna matzati chen be'einacha. Again, he's saying the whole time, he's going down on his face and saying, I really want to find, I want to be favorite in your eyes. Velakachta minchati miyadi, please take the present. Ki al ken ra'iti panecha, I saw your face. He's talking to Esav. I've seen your face. Kirot pnei Elohim v'tirtzeni, and I really would like you to be happy with me because I've seen your face like a face of God. How dare you say such a thing? He says it because he saw the image of the face of the angel, exactly the same face of Esav. Why do I say Chazal are right that he really overdid it? Because after this story, all the stories about Yaakov, he loses power over and over again. The next story will be that afterwards, the Gentiles, which are not nice Gentiles, you've got Chamor ben Shechem, and I always call him Chamor ben Chamor. He was really like a Chamor. He took the daughter of Yaakov and raped her. How they take the daughter of Yaakov? Yaakov was considered a really big enemy, but after Yaakov has bowed down and really totally expressed really no power against Esav. Okay, he won the battle against the angel, but against Esav, he really flattened himself down, and 7 times, 8 times he bowed down, and he kissed him, and so on. From then on, he loses power. And then the rest of the people, we're talking about the Gentiles, weren't frightened from Yaakov anymore. And later, all the stories will be that his children are trying to overcome Yaakov's power. You can see Shimon and Levi are not asking him his opinion if to go to fight. They go and fight against Shem. Afterwards, Reuven takes his concubine, which means, Father, you've lost power, so I'm going to be the king. And when he takes the wife of his father, it doesn't matter what it means. He takes the wife or changes the beds. It means you've lost power. I'm now the king. And we know from the other places from the Tanakh, when a son takes his father's house, beds, or his concubines, it means, Father, you've lost power, I'm taking over. And then we see Yehuda is also doing all kinds of things, and the rest of the kids are doing all kinds of things, selling their other brothers. That means Yaakov has lost power. So perhaps that's to show, yes, you have to be really gentle with your enemies, but don't be too gentle. When you bow down too much, you'll lose from that. So we have to learn a lot of lessons from it. Okay, any questions?
It's a lesson in politics.
It's more than politics. A lot has been written about this parasha. A lot has been written about that. Did Yaakov really do well or not? So we know Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, that wrote the Mishnah, he comes and praises Yaakov, and when he regards to Antoninus, which was the good Caesar, all the Caesars that were before him were terrible. They destroyed our temple, and then came one Antoninus, who came I've forgotten his name. At the year 200, there was a good Caesar, and we know that he actually was not bad to the Jews. And Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi bowed down to him, and all the rabbis asked, how, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, how you are bowing down so much to this Caesar? He answers, am I less better than Yaakov? Yaakov bowed down, and I should also bow down. That means he's giving a lot of confidence and saying, Yaakov did the right thing, I'm doing the right thing. But the rest of the rabbis and the rest of many other midrashim come and complain that Yaakov overdid it, and that's why we bow down too much. Afterwards, the Esav has overtaken many of our history, a lot of our history, and taken over because we bow down too much. We hope that now at the end of the 2,000 years of Galut, we hope that we can lift up our noses higher. Okay, yesterday was a good idea. Was good news that the scientist was killed. Perhaps Iran will start bowing down. Perhaps I don't know. We are less bowing down now than we used to be. Okay, that's what I've got to say for today.
All right, thank you. That was interesting.
להתראות, כל טוב אבי, להתראות.
שבוע טוב, כל טוב.
שבוע טוב, להתראות.
ביי.